Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
The internet is full of half-truths and all-out lies. We've all seen them, and many people on social media complaining about it. Here's your chance to show and prove. WorldAfropedia.com is a black-owned and operated encyclopedia. There are several thousand articles, but we need help. We can't uncover all the truth ourselves. So please, join us and become a writer, editor, or blogger for WorldAfropedia.com today. Every little bit counts. We owe it to the future generations to put the truth out there. Visit WorldAfropedia.com, the African-centered encyclopedia, a global database of African knowledge for the purpose of bringing about global African wisdom and understanding. WorldAfropedia.com.
Well, there's a scandal engulfing a South Bay Police Department. A San Jose officer is filing a lawsuit against his own department.
Today in the Bay's Bob Riddell is live outside of SJPD. And Bob, what is that officer alleging?
Well, good morning to you there, Marcus and Laura. San Jose police officer Nabil Haidar, who is Lebanese American and Muslim, accuses some of his fellow officers of taunting him in the years after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. According to Haidar, he says that a number of his colleagues have discriminated against him at work by calling him things like bin Laden and Taliban. They allegedly joked that he was a suicide bomber or member of ISIS, among other allegations. Now, you'll recall NBC Bay Area broke this story back in May when Officer Haidar filed an administration claim with the city. He filed another claim with the California Department of Fair Employment and Housing in July. After exhausting all of those administrative options, he received a right to sue letter from the state, which is what he's doing right now. The lawsuit names the city, the department, Police Chief Eddie Garcia, and 5 other officers. Now, the city says it has yet to be served with this lawsuit, but the city attorney did respond, and I'm quoting here, the city and police department takes seriously all allegations of race or religious discrimination. However, based on the claim filed by Mr. Haidar with the State Department of Fair Employment and Housing and our subsequent investigation, we have not seen a basis for liability against the city. Haidar, who is a 21-year veteran of the department, was once suspended for a week after a citizen complained that he made several unflattering racial stereotypes related to Asians. Reporting live here outside the San Jose Police Department, Bob Riddell, today in the Bay.
This time I'm walking to New Orleans. I'm walking to New Orleans. I'm gonna need to parachute when I get through walking these blues. When I get back to New Orleans.
Got my membership right here. I scanned in. I was asked to scan in again for no reason. I'm the only person in the gym they asked to scan again. And I have my membership. I've been a member here for at least 8 years.
As CNN reported in April, 3 employees at a New Jersey franchise of health club chain LA Fitness lost their jobs after 2 members said they were racially profiled.
And the company said it would explore providing sensitivity training for its employees. But 3 months earlier, a former employee of LA Fitness says she was discriminated against while working at the company's club in Slidell. Investigative reporter Katie Moore brings us the story, developed with our partners at the New Orleans Advocate.
LA Fitness is marketed as a center for health and wellness, but Ariel Mack says working there wasn't healthy at all for her. It was toxic.
I walked in confident and I left out a whole nother way. I left out broken.
Mack is preparing to file a lawsuit against LA Fitness for racial discrimination after she says she was denied the opportunity to make commission and fired. Mack says she was one of 2 African Americans employed there, and she was supervised by 2 white men, General Manager Mark Mayu and Assistant General Manager Blake Mata.
And then they had this guy who looked like he works out a lot, and Blake was into fitness. And when a guy passed by, he was like, that is big.
Mac says Mata's use of the N-word was normalized by the general manager. Outraged and offended, she says she started recording their conversations, like this video of a conversation she says she had with Mata about a black member.
It was coming at you. Oh, you freak out.
That was too offensive. That's offensive. He started asking me really unintelligent questions that I found to be ignorant. Like, how do black people have highlights in their hair? He used to touch my hair and be like, how is this? Is this a weave?
3 months into the job, she says she had enough. She took her complaints to Mata's boss.
About 15 or 20 minutes later, he told me he spoke to Kirk, the VP. And he said that Kirk told him that he would like for him to put in a position for my position, which is a sales counselor on Indeed.
So he was going to put out a job ad to fill your job.
Because I complained about Blake using the N-word.
Mayu didn't, but Mac says things went from bad to worse at work.
Now my peers who are a different race from me know that I'm being targeted due to race, and then no one wanted to talk to me after that.
But one did, as a warning. Mac says she received this text message from another employee, quote, "I think they trying to get you fired." The employee said, quote, "Blake told Mark we should have never hired that N-word." The next day on January 2nd, while on her lunch break, Mac says she received this text message from a phone number that she knew to be Mata's.
Hey, this is Blake, just doing a follow-up with you. We took you off the schedule because your look doesn't meet LA Fitness standards in the fro. We want a classy appearance. We don't want to leak off a style. Don't take it the wrong way. Just change it. Talk to me in person if you need to. Yeah, it broke me because I didn't feel like that's how they really felt about me. I felt like, they made comments, but I didn't know, wow, they hate me.
After Mata's text, Max says she went back to the gym and confronted Mayu with it. He apologized, but later she texted him, "Hey, I just vomited on myself. I feel very sick. I don't think I can finish the day. Sorry." She would never return to work at LA Fitness. She texted Mayu on Saturday she still wasn't feeling well and wouldn't be in. Mayu replied, "Okay." The following Monday, while she was at the doctor to treat her nausea and anxiety, Mayu left her this voicemail.
Kurt had called yesterday when nobody showed up in the morning over there to work. He knows that you didn't come in again yesterday or today, so he's telling me we have to move on. I didn't want you to come all the way over Tuesday for me to tell you that we were going to release you. So.
But Ariel Mack is not the only former employee here at LA Fitness that describes the work environment as toxic.
They had a blatant disregard for treating people equally.
Angel Torres was the fitness manager at LA Fitness for 7 months. She says she remembers warning Ariel that she thought Mayu and Mac were conspiring to fire her.
Did they discriminate against her because she was black?
Mm-hmm. Torres says Mayu and Mata sat near her cubicle in an open office and that Mayu regularly used racial slurs about African Americans who came into the gym.
They tried to hide that as much as possible in using the code word.
In March, Mac filed a complaint against LA Fitness and its parent company, Fitness International, with the Louisiana Human Rights Commission and the EEOC. This letter from the Human Rights Commission says LA Fitness responded to Mac's complaint, claiming she, quote, constantly called out sick and exhibited a very poor work ethic, even when she was present. Mac says she was never reprimanded or even written up for poor job performance. The commission's investigation found Mac may not have been fired just because of her race or for standing up against the discrimination, but it did find LA Fitness violated Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which protects people from discrimination in the workplace, quote, due to her natural hair.
It's really just hard.
In Mac's case, she says she recorded her supervisor using the N-word in conversation at least 3 times.
It's so easy for someone to say, to get another job. But what about doing the right thing?
This week, we saw Mata and Mayu going into the gym for work. Mata's Facebook page indicates he was promoted after this happened to fitness director, filling Torres's job when she left. Mata and Mayu didn't return our calls or texts seeking comment. The operations manager asked us to email LA Fitness corporate communications, but they have yet to comment.
It was sickening to have to sit there and bear witness to it, but I had to feed my family. I didn't have a choice, and I was scared more to speak up and say anything about it because I didn't want to lose my job.
And what made you decide to speak up now?
Because right is right. That's why.
Good working with you and definitely meeting you. And, you're welcome to come in there whenever you like to work out with you. But like I said, we're going to have to move on. I hope you learned something.
She says she sure did.
I'm truly broken. I'm just not the same.
Katie Moore, Eyewitness News.
A records show LA Fitness offered Mac a $2,000 settlement through the Human Rights Commission's conciliation process. She declined, instead opting to hire a lawyer.
She says she is waiting on a letter from the Equal Opportunity Employment Commission about her case before she can file a lawsuit.
Context of White Supremacy. Gus T Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Thursday, September 27, 2018. So I have been told it was a spectacular day in Seattle. Many of those in these parts, but just a spectacular day. I was again reminded, no contest, the best plantation in the Northwest Hemisphere. Not even close. Seattle, Washington. What a lovely day. Whew, unfortunately, still marred by the system of white supremacy. The audio were segments, really. Beirut bomber. The audio segments that were played at the beginning of the broadcast, that is why we have this program every Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. I contend the system of white supremacy, that happens every day, all day long, all over the world, anywhere you have non-white people in any sort of job setting, regardless of their title. They could be the CEO of the company. It doesn't matter. That is the system of white supremacy, and you have lots of non-white people who are very, very confused about white supremacy, racism. They go into these workplace environments and just get absolutely obliterated. And you heard particularly Pam the Great. We're talking about natural hair in the section coming up tomorrow. We talked about it previously. It'll be up again in Black Love is a Revolutionary Act tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Pam the Great. But that segment, black female, gorgeous. You can see the video. If you're interested, I can post it so you can see, have visuals to go with it. But where she talked about the pain of not understanding that they hated her. She thought, hey, we work together. We're cool. These are my pals. We're at the gym. We're working out. We all care about fitness. No, I did not understand. Oh, they hate me. They think I'm a nigger. They're not just saying nigger casually while they're chatting or whatever they're listening to on the speakers while they're working out. No. They mean I'm a nigger. Me. Like, whoa. And I mean, just the pain in her voice. That is exactly why we have this program. What do I say on a consistent basis? A major aspect of having a code, an understanding, being equipped when we go into the workplace. Understanding these are not my homies, these are not my friends. They think I'm a nigger. That's what I have in mind. And in fact, I'm not even going to bat an eye if they call me a nigger. If anything, I'm going to pull out my pencil. I'm going to pull out my recorder, pull out my phone. Say that again. Let me write this down. Or whatever your response is. Some you just have the question. Oh, what do you do with niggers, ma'am, sir? And wait for and then you still pull out your recorder and make sure you write down the response. But I mean, yes, no. Oh my God, I thought Ted. None of that. No, I mean, because you can see total devastation, and that's what she said. That's what she confessed in the segment. That's why I played. I thought that was wow. Workplace racism. Participate in workplace racism, and you will not be in that devastated state. Hopefully. The number 641-715-3640. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Number again, 641-715-3640. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Few extracurricular details before we proceed with workplace racism. Number one, it looks like this is still a ways off. There are many things that could happen between now and February 2019. I do not make an effort to not make assumptions or to take things for granted. But if we should make it to February 2019 without too many disastrous things happening between now and then in a system of white supremacy, but should we get there, that would be the 10-year anniversary of this broadcast, the C.O.W.S. And I have talked about, hinted that we could possibly do a 10-year anniversary retreat to recognize the 10 years of the broadcast and to also do some yoga, since I have been practicing so much and loving practicing, absolutely love practicing, even though I did not practice today. I generally do not practice on Thursdays, and am now certified and what have you, so I can instruct. White people say that I'm licensed and informed enough to teach a class competently, that we can do some yoga. And folks said they were interested, even had people volunteer to say that they would help put the event together. I compiled a survey this week. I posted it on Facebook and tweeted it out. I'll post it again. If you did not fill it out, please fill it out. If you are interested, authentically interested in perhaps participating in the February 2019 C.O.W.S. Yoga Retreat, fill out the survey. That way I'll have a better sense of what people would be looking for, what they would be willing to pay, where they would like the event to be geographically located. Dr. Cambon's voice has been with me frequently, where we cannot just be victims of racism who are giving out a lot of nickels to whites to travel to a location and then doling out a lot of nickels to whites to stay at a location for whatever and to feed us for the like. We can't do that, so it would have to be someplace that is quote unquote black owned, and really trying to minimize that as much as possible. But lots to consider in putting the whole event together. But fill out the survey. I have been pleasantly surprised to see that there are a significant number of listeners who at least filled out the survey who would be interested in coming to Washington State. Gus T would be interested in staying home, quote unquote, for this event. That would also be something to balance out, to be able to stay, be at a facility that is quote unquote black owned while staying in the Washington State area. That might be a challenge, but fill out the survey. We'll get data and see if we can make it happen. I would be interested getting together and doing some yoga and talking about, counter racism. That's, what this whole 10 years has been about. I would be interested, and looks like folks would be interested. So fill out the survey. We'll update and give out more details and walk down a timeline of what needs to happen, when, where, and all that to make this happen. Next, quick bit of details, or actually this is related to workplace racism. One of our listeners posted a great, actually double, I thought of Red, resident expert, as dubbed by Ivy. There was a report in the New York Times: workers overdose on the job and employers struggle to respond. And they have a picture of some cracked out looking race soldier, white male, on the front of the report. I was like, oh, I need to send this to Red, and then I neglected to do so. So I feel like I have amended for that by mentioning it to everybody And then I can just link it and you can go check it out. But hopefully Red heard and everybody else did. Workers overdose on the job. They should have said white workers overdose on the job. And employers struggle to respond. How about fire them or call the police? That's what they did with niggers. It's not a struggle. It's 911. Crackhead nigger. Throw them in jail. Here's your pink slip. Throw them in jail. I mean, that's not the report that I really wanted to share. The report that I really wanted to share, also in the New York Times, Black female lawmaker in Vermont resigns after racial harassment. That's the one that I wanted to share. And she also has natural hair. C.O.W.S, a Democrat, resigned from her seat in the State House of Representatives 1 month after she ended her re-election campaign over harassment and threats. It reads, Burlington, Vermont. C.O.W.S, the only African-American female in the Vermont House of Representatives, announced her resignation on Tuesday, a month after she ended her re-election bid because of what she described as a years-long campaign of racially motivated harassment and threats. That's why I think it is more accurate, the word terrorism. It's not threats and harassment. A campaign of white terrorism. Continuing, in a Facebook post, Ms. Morris said she had originally hoped to serve the remainder of her term, which would have ended in January, but that this time has proven to be one of significant challenge for my family. She ended her re-election campaign on August 24th. My husband is beginning the long physical journey of recovery following extensive open heart surgery. We face continued harassment and seek legal remedies to the harm endured, she wrote. I step away now to focus on caring for and supporting my family during this time of transition and ensure our health, safety, and well-being are prioritized. Ms. Morris, a Democrat, was elected to represent the town of Bennington in 2014 and is the second African-American woman to serve in the state legislature in Vermont's history. Her resignation leaves only a handful of non-white lawmakers, they use the word non-white, in the 180-member body, including 2 male senators, Randy Brock and Francis Brooks, the 2 House members, Diana Gonzalez and Kevin Christie. In a rare interview on Sunday in the basement of a Catholic school turned community center, she reflected on her experience in the State House and described the harassment. There was vandalism within our home. She said, within our home. She said, we found there were swastikas painted on the trees in the woods near where we lived. We had home invasions. It had come and gone and in different ways, but then it picked back up again. And of course, we are back in an election season, so there's always more, she said. But she declined to provide a timeline or detailed information about the events that led her to end her campaign and resign from office, saying she did not want the glossy minutiae of her case to distract from the larger issues of systemic racism. I'm having a really hard time with this line of questioning, and I apologize, she said. I feel very resistant to get into the details of what we are talking about. Her husband, James Lawton, has documented some of the harassment on his Facebook page. Much is in the form of social media posts that use foul or racist language and images. Even without the harassment and threats, Ms. Morris said she found the work of state government to be rewarding but draining. I am proud of that work, but I need space to breathe because for that exchange, it exacts a huge cost, she said. I am going to stop right there. Eric Garner, Miss Morris, can't breathe. System of White Supremacy. You can check out this report at the New York Times. One of our listeners posted about Miss Morris. But again, white terrorism words are very important. They did the same thing in the segment where they talked about offense. I think that was the term that was used when one of the racist race soldiers at the LA Fitness was saying nigger this and nigger that and say, oh, that's so offensive. No. You do not use that word. Again, that is using language as though I'm just sensitive. What do they call you? I'm so soft-skinned. I'm just a little child, and my feelings get hurt. I'm so easily offended. That's the way that they try to portray us when we're reporting white terrorism anyway. So I recommend do not use that term. It was not offensive. It was perhaps an act of racism. It was incorrect behavior, however you want to document it, subversive behavior, terroristic behavior, lots of other words that could be used, not offensive. One more off-task mention. Again, Pam the Great. She was on my mind a lot today. Pam the Great. Missed terribly. We are closing in on the conclusion of Black Love is a Revolutionary Act. I'd say maybe 2 to 3 more segments to go, perhaps. I'm not sure. But not too many more. I'd say we should read The Interracial Con Game as a follow-up, because that's the next book after Black Love is a Revolutionary Act was published. And I'd said that I would read that book because I think Pam would want me to read some of her text if we're going to do it on the book club. I think she would want Gus to read a book or two. And I would be all on board. In fact, I had Interracial Con Game on my wish list at Amazon.com under Gus T Renegade. I had it posted there. A gracious listener invested and got a copy of the book for me. I already have a copy, signed copy of the book at my library at my flooded residence. Still no return date. But I already have a copy. But since it's 1 at the flood residence and 2 signed, I didn't want to use that copy to narrate. I would rather leave that one alone. So I got another copy. And I'm all set. I was going to try to get started reading the book early. And I didn't forget. I'm very aware. I wrote the cover review for the book. You know, if you have the hard copy of the Interracial Con Game, if you turn it over on the back, you'll see Gus T's quote for my review that I wrote for that book on the back of the book jacket. And we're quoted, like when I say we, the cows, we're quoted throughout the book. I have narrated books before. I have not narrated a text where I would actually be quoting myself back as I'm reading. And that right there, I had forgotten about. That is another reason that we have not done any of Pam's books on the book club. I do feel a bit close to some of these books, especially the Interracial Con Game. As I said, I wrote the review before the book was even published. Like, she shared the table. Anyway, I feel very close to that book, and I feel some type of way beyond just missing Pam and all that. I feel some type of way about reading a book that I have very close connections to. So because of that, we probably wouldn't be reading this book at all, but honoring tribute to Pam, which I'm all on board with. Let's do the book, but I would prefer not to read it. I just feel some type of way about having to read myself back during the book study. It's not like we're on every page, but we are featured quite a bit in that book for a myriad of reasons. So if we have folks who would be down to narrate the Interracial Con Game, that would be great. I'd prefer not to narrate. You can drop an email untiljustice@gmail.com, and we will not be starting that book for a good 2-3 weeks. So you would have time before we would need to get rolling. Untiljustice@gmail.com. Let me know. Much obliged. Also, if you are not able to call in during the live broadcast, you can drop an email untiljustice@gmail.com, and I can read your commentary on the air. If you have suggestions, or if you have suggestions on what's been shared in terms of what you think about a situation, or if you have your own situation that you want to discuss, drop us an email and I will read it anonymously on the air. That said, I will make sure I get in my weekly reminder. This broadcast is not for spectators. There are many options. Football season started again. You can watch that. I know there's no more Scandal, but they got, I think Grey's Anatomy is still on Thursday nights. Lots of things. It was a lovely day here in Seattle. Sun is still shining. You can go outside, do some outdoor activities. This is not for spectators, just to listen to the woes of niggers on the job. If you are a non-white person and you work, or if you have a work history, I am sure you can reflect on some of your experiences. It can be things that happened today. I am sure for a lot of us, it could be things that happened just within the last 3 hours. Certainly reflecting on the last week, month, year, 2 years that we've been on the job, whatever it is, I am sure we can think of quite a few things to discuss as it relates to racism, white supremacy on the job. This is not for spectators, and certainly if you have figured out some things that work well, I say that frequently. Whites don't mess with you on the job. You get everything that you need, big office, days off, sick leave, whatever it is. We definitely need that information. You should call in and let us know, hey, these are some things that I figured out that help me solve problems. And particularly this week, if we have folks who have figured out codification with regards to minimizing conflict with other non-white people, that would be just fantastic. Folks who have used counter-racism, because that is major. That's one that used to come up so many times on this program with workplace racism, non-white people being frustrated, angry with, in conflict with other non-white people on their job. If there are folks out there, we're getting a better understanding of racism and specifically developing a code for how you're going to function on the job. How has that helped you minimize conflict with other black people at work? That would be great, because that is, I mean, wow, that has taken over entire segments of workplace racism on the cows over the years. Not talking about what whites are doing to us on the job, but man, oh man, there is a coon that I work with and I am ready to go to school on him. I mean, that, woo, it is in the archives. I'll say no more. But if we have folks who have specific input on how codification has helped them minimize that tendency to be in conflict with other non-white people, that would be grand to share for the evening. The number again, 641-715-3640. The code 564-943#. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Getting to the switchboard. How interesting. I'm just going to try and be cool and use my... Oh, there it is. I'm having to do a little extra reaching to grasp the technology. Alrighty. First few folks who dialed in, if you have a hand up, if you know you're in a noisy environment, if you could use your mute button, that would be super appreciated. Just helps if we don't have to fight over a lot of unnecessary background noise. And just if you could use the mute button, that would be great. There are people who wrote in already with workplace racism situations. I will sprinkle those in as we proceed. But the first few folks who dialed in with a hand up, line should be open. Proceed.
May I be heard?
Greetings, Red in Nevada, aforementioned.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking my call. Definitely appreciate the information about the whites overdosing on the job. Of course, they won't use whites. It definitely reminds me of how the white woman at the plantation where I work at, she's known to be on narcotics, and I feel like I've seen her. I wouldn't be surprised if she was under the influence, but, just business as usual, nothing being said, even though in the policies and procedures it says you cannot come to work under the influence, but, oh, well, it's a white woman. So this week, I guess I just have one short story, and then also to answer the question, I guess I'll answer the question first about minimizing conflict with other victims, specifically in my case, Black people. I know I've spoken about before how there was this victim who really, I guess, didn't kind of like encroach in like the area, the personal space that was assigned to me at the plantation. And what I have done, and I feel like the victim has kind of caught on to it, is the fact that I'm like very short with the victim. I don't feel like I'm smart at it, but if they ask me questions, I don't like really elaborate. They ask me, if I read an email and what did I think about it? I haven't read it and I really don't have too many comments on it. Basically, that's it. And then they kind of get the hint and they don't really speak to me. They'll speak to other people around them, which I'm more than happy with. But this week, the racist who doesn't know my name still, I had spoken about this victim that I sit by who has so much stuff in their drawers and that attracts different suspected racists to come and get chocolate and snacks and whatever. So the racist who doesn't know my name went over to her, asked the victim if she can get some chocolate. So the victim, says yes, and the white woman walks over and she proceeds to open up the cabinet that I have my stuff in that is assigned to me while I'm at the plantation. So the first time this happens, I'm like, I watch her open up the cabinet, and I'm like, that's not where the stuff is. Now, clearly, I'm actually sitting down at this point, and I'm sitting down near the cabinet that's assigned to me, and the victim who has all the snacks and stuff is sitting down near the cabinet, like basically right in front of the cabinets that are assigned to them. Not only that, they also have like this, you could see, the different work areas, who's assigned to what. So I let it go the first time to say, hey, this is my drawer. Victim says, oh, I'm sorry. The suspected racist says, oh, I'm sorry. Goes over to the other cabinet and gets the candy out. Again, this happens today, but this time as I see the suspected racist reaching down to open up the cabinet again that has my stuff in it, I put my foot in front of the cabinet. I'm like, no, this is where my stuff is. Go over to her cabinet, which is where her stuff is at, and it's right next to it. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry, and then proceeds to get the chocolate that she doesn't need. But I try to make sure that I'm very short with this racist that that's kind of like worn down more patience with. But I guess that's definitely the other thing, same suspected racist, the plantation, as I spoke about before. They always are like passing out some type of edible item that I don't eat, and really nobody should be eating it because it's so unhealthy. So again, that happened this week, and as they're passing out the item, I'm like, no, I don't eat that. And the racist who can't remember my name, can't remember what drawer she should get the chocolate from, says, oh yeah, she's vegan. Like, oh, so you can remember what I eat, but all these other things you can't remember. So just thought that was interesting, and I'll mute my line. Thank you for allowing me to share.
So tacky. The bees, the fish, the squirrels, the cows are way more important than your name, or any other nigger's name for that matter. But outstanding black self-respect in not allowing her to rifle through your drawer. All of this over chocolate. Welsing moment. The grandsister, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing. All of this over chocolate. Incidentally, I've said that consistently, even though this didn't necessarily cause any problems for the victim who was sharing her items or food or whatever. It caused problems where red is being mistreated. Where this race soldier is just, in my view, it might be, whatever. I can rifle through, any of you niggers stuff, really, and just take what I want. I suspect at least, certainly by the second time, that she knew this is not where I'm supposed to be going to get these items, but, whatever. I'm just going to rifle through, and maybe she has some tasty items that I want too. Not having these snacks or having these snacks and things, I've said, is just an invitation for racists to practice racism against you or other non-whites while they're, going to rifle and molest your desk. And I think it's just a bad idea to have something that is inviting whites to come and have an excuse to come and paw around your desk area or your things. That's just not something that you want to encourage, in my view. But great observation with this race soldier. She can recall your eating habits, but cannot remember your name. Bravo for the vegans. Incidentally, when I was sharing about the drugs, white what they call the opioid epidemic. It reminded me when you were talking about how whites are treated on the job, they can OD and everything, it's no problem. Man, I have talked for years about, I lived in Atlanta. I worked at a black comedy club. This is before the C.O.W.S came into existence. Incidentally, I'd said I need to make sure that I say this on the radio. I live in Seattle, greatest plantation in the Northwestern Hemisphere. I have heard many black people who are either Seattle residents or they visit and they complain there are not enough black people. There are not enough black people. I wish there were more black people. Gus T Renegade has never said or felt that the entire time that I have been here. Never. On no day, at no time have I said or felt that ever. I just wanted to make sure that that gets stated for the record. What a curious difference, because I hear that so frequently from black people. Don't hear that from myself. Part of the reason I lived in Atlanta before I came here. Now, back to what I wanted to share on workplace racism. When I lived in Atlanta, I worked at a black comedy club. There was one white employee who was the general manager. Now, this guy, he was the number 2 person there behind the, like you could get, the only way you get higher than him in terms of authority at the club was to go to the direct owner, who was a black person, but, and he wasn't there most of the time. So the number 1 person generally, or the person who had the most authority generally, was this white guy at this black comedy club. So this guy, in addition to cowbell, I forgot, in addition to him being in his 40s and having sexual intercourse with a black female who for a time was not even 18 while he was married. In addition, this guy was on all kinds of drugs. This is not made up. This is not fantasy. This is Gus T. Watch this. This guy was so on whatever. He couldn't even sit up straight, and he was still operating at the ticket window. When people were coming to the club, this OD suspected, this OD race soldier would be the first person you meet as representative of the club. And he's the GM, no less. He was so I can't even say intoxicated. That's not strong enough. He was so under the influence of something. He had put chicken bones in the cash register. I couldn't make this up on my worst day. He was putting chicken bones in the cash register. They had to send him home. No, he was not. I don't even know what you could do to reprimand. He's not. The owner would have had to fire him, and of course that didn't happen. But I watched this. I saw the chicken, but he was so out of his mind. He was putting chicken bones in the cash register. That is the system of white supremacy. That is not white privilege. Wow. I could not imagine any black person, except for the owner maybe, I could not imagine any black employee at the club being able to get away with that kind of conduct and not being terminated. Other folks that we have not, much obliged, read, other folks that we've not heard from. If you have commentary, proceed.
Can I be heard?
Retired firefighter in Florida. Yes, sir.
Greetings, everyone. I was just at the beginning of the program listening to the report that was given by I believe it was a non-white black female who seemed to be in dire distress when she was confronted with the practice of racism, white supremacy. I would just constantly suggest and or warn non-white people, especially non-white black people, that when you have to estimate on where you're going to, what's the most frequent places where you're going to encounter the practice of racism, employment is going to be on the top 3 or 4 places on the list where you're going to encounter the racism being practiced on a daily basis. and you have to your expectations about white people and their behavior and actions through thought, speech, and action. You have to be prepared for it. You have to be prepared for it, or it's going to literally destroy you. It can literally destroy you if you are not prepared for it. I can just hear that all through the report that you played. You had a question. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. The question was if folks have specific illustrations of how having a counter-racist code for work has helped minimize problems with other non-white people on the job specifically.
Well, I made a whole lot of mistakes on it, but I would say, being that I was able to go through the process to even retirement, I would state that you got to be codified. You got to be codified in your relations to non-white people, especially non-white black people. I would say stay on course. Whatever type of conversation or activity that you're going to engage with another non-white person, it has to be related to that particular business. As far as I'm concerned, my relationships with people like Mr. Clark, who was on your program, and a few more people, is because that we actually met when we were off duty, and was individually on our own choices without us organizing or anything. Went to a march, quote unquote march. This is back in the 80s, and that's how we met, and we formed a relationship from there. That's how we were able to kind of like go against these rules that I'm talking about, because we actually were active when we were not working on that job. Of course, we were brought in and questioned on our many activities. We're talking about over the course of since 1984 up until I retired in 2007. We were doing something of some nature, but primarily that was off duty. That's a part of our victim status, that you're going to take risk as far as that concerned. It wasn't necessarily a certain thing that we were doing at work, but I wouldn't advise it for anybody else. I wouldn't advise it. I would if I had to, and it was my offspring who is at work right now. I tell him is to don't talk about racism. Don't talk about racism. Stay on course as far as with the job, as far as what you talk about, as far as they're concerned, and just get your work done. As far as they're concerned. But I also have a story, not a story, but a report. I work out at a local quote unquote community center that's named after a black female, Betty Ferguson to be exact, who helped create the idea of a area that is called Miami Gardens, and I work out there when I want to be around. I have a gym in the place that I'm allowed to stay at, but I go and work out there a lot when I want to be in contact with other people, other non-white people, and in turn, as we are working it out, we do engage in conversation, and the non-white people in this facility basically have over the years have developed an understanding, somewhat of an understanding of me and what I talk about. So sometimes they bring things to me without me asking for it. But this one non-white black male decided to tell me a report about his workplace racism. He works for the sanitation department with the city of Miami. And nowadays, as most people know, the sanitation workers don't hang off the back of the truck and go to your backyard and pick up a metal object called a garbage can. They have these, you put your garbage trash out on the street, and the truck, the machinery on the truck picks up the garbage itself. So I don't know exactly how it operates, but he described how it was, where it's himself, the driver, and another person that's in the truck. He's sitting in the middle, and there's 3 black males. The two on his left, to his left and right, were arguing and fussing with one another. I mean, almost to the level of fighting, as far as they're concerned. Somehow it got to the administrative staff, and the person who I guess was in charge of this incident was a white person, and the white person called him in. The one in the middle he wasn't the one arguing, with the other 2 guys. And he wanted him to, he started questioning him about what he thought would happen, that happened. He was smart enough to understand counter-racist logic by not giving this white person any information. Basically, what he did when he was asked the questions, I can't specifically say it how he described it to me, but basically, almost to the letter, he was describing Mr. Fuller's suggestions. When someone asks you about another person, he said what he said, he did what he did, she said what she said, she did what she did, that sort of thing. In other words, don't ask me. These 2 people are still alive. You have to ask them. And he stated to me, basically, that's the only information that he gave about these 2 non-white black males, victims of racist white supremacy. And he said this white person got real angry, but understood that it was nothing he can technically, as far as due to the rules and regulations, that he can do. Because he's an employee. He's not responsible for what 2 other employees do. That's that person's job to find out on what took place. And I basically complimented him on that. I really started working out then, because that was very inspirational on what he was, how he was describing his codified response to this white person. And that's all I'm going to say for right now. Thank you.
Spectacular. Glad to hear it. That is great. Mr. Edward Williams, counter-racism.com. He has a great segment in the book that is similar to that, where a white person with the ability to solve this problem right now. I can fire, whoever needs to get fired, bam, I can do it in the next 5 minutes. I don't need to ask any of the niggers around here anything. But he says, oh, I need to speak to you, Mr. Williams. What do you think about such and such? What do you think? Oh yeah, let me tell you, she comes in late every day, and that no good rascal, and so I can talk bad. And he did the exact same thing, stay codified, didn't say anything bad, and seemed like it kind of caught the white person off guard. They enjoy that. That is a part of the practice of racism. And in my view, one of the ways that aids them is that then, hey, it's not racism. I called in one of these colored fellas here, and, this is what he said happened. So I'm just going by what do you want me to do? We can't have fighting on here. So, had to let you go. So I had to let both of you go, whatever it is. And, I asked Ned over here. It wasn't even me. I just asked Ned or whatever. I'm just making, I asked him, what happened. And that's what he said. And then they can blame it. See, they find that way of consistently doing it. The same thing for Mr. Williams' situation where he could say, oh, well, I talked to Mr. Williams and he said that you've been showing up late and doing this and doing that. So, hey, I think he knows. He's a smart fellow, that Mr. Williams. Oh, yeah, good color fellow. They do that sort of thing all the time, consistently. That going right back to the question that I asked about minimizing conflict with other non-white people. That's one of the major ways right there. Not talking bad about other non-white people in front of or to whites, making that a bedrock part of your code. And I'm not going to entertain a white person that's just going to sit around and badmouth and gossip about another black person, even another white person, really. But another black person, I'm not going to entertain that and just, have that be consistent. Let's see. Other folks, much obliged, retired firefighter. Other folks that we have not heard from at all. I'll give out the number again, 641-715-3640. The code 564-943 #. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Folks, we have not heard from at all. If you have a hand up, line should be open. Proceed.
May I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Greetings, callers, listeners, and thank you, Gus, for the platform. Just to answer the question, I kind of came in a little bit late on the call. I did have an incident that was I consider it pretty productive, even though I did actually go off code. Was an incident in my office where another non-white person was speaking negatively about another one, and again, this was a gentleman that's Dominican, classifies himself as Dominican, and he was speaking negatively in regards to the other person that was from Haiti. And I've heard him speak like this before in the office. It was there were two other people in the office as well, all non-white. And when he started this rant about this gentleman from Haiti, I speak to this gentleman from Haiti often, and he's down to earth, very respectful. He's more senior than me. He's an older gentleman, so I do go to him and speak to him from time to time to find out different things about the environment, changes and such forth, people being let go, and what so have you. But when this gentleman, Dominican, was speaking about him in such a negative fashion, I just lost it. And I said, well, hey, our manager is Dominican as well and doesn't like him. And then you're speaking now and you're Dominican as well and you don't like him. Do you think it might be the fact that you're Dominican and he's Haitian, which we all know you guys have problems with people from Haiti. People from Haiti don't have issues with people from DR, not the reverse way around. And again, like I went off code and I did use some explicit language as well in the matter, because I was a little upset because I was hearing this for like the third or fourth time. Prior to that, he kind of backed down. And that happened last week. And this week now, we actually had a private conversation, me and the gentleman from DR, and he said, you know what? You're right. I do kind of, considering how I get mistreated by the white people in the office, and I'm kind of cool with them still, I should give him the same respect. And it was kind of strange, to hear him say that, but it was a very good epiphany that he kind of came to, realizing that he himself is speaking negative about not only his coworker, but another non-white male. And that kind of, I still watch him because obviously what I said was a little bit over the top. I still watch him, and I'm still very cautious on things that I say around him. But that instance was a very unique instance where I did go off code, and it turned out to be constructive. It turned out to be in a positive manner. And that's pretty much what I have to share as far as workplace racism. Thank you. I'll mute my line.
Is it anything that you think, thank you so much for sharing, sir. Is it anything reflecting on that incident? Is it anything that you think that you could do better in that situation if you decide, hey, I do want to say something to this victim who's talking bad about this Haitian employee? Is anything that you could do that would be a better way of, I guess, speaking to this person?
I would say the most important thing that I need to do is control my anger. I don't make any qualms about it. I do have difficulty with that in certain situations because I have issues seeing people being treated unjustly for basically little or no reason. So when I'm in the office and I hear these kinds of conversations, I tend to remove myself from the situation, go to another room, go do another task. But in this instance, I couldn't, and the anger in me got the better to some degree. But I think that's the crux of it, is that I need to think a little bit more first, because he also is a non-white male, and really come up with a different way of addressing issues like that with him or with other non-white males. I need to kind of take a step inside first. And what I do also on the side to formulate my thoughts better is I write. I'm reading. I haven't been able to keep up with the book sessions this Friday, but I do have Pam's book, and I've been reading that as well on the side. So that helps as well. But writing has been helping me formulate my thoughts better so that I can articulate myself when these situations come up and not be upset and address matters in the form or fashion that I did.
Reading and writing more important than watching television. Great suggestions, sir. Thank you for sharing. I will emphasize, I do think I've said it a few times, many times over the years. One of the core aspects, really the most important aspect of counter-racism on the job, and maybe, beyond, is maintaining your composure. If you get to the point where you're so frustrated by what's happening that you're not really in control of your emotions, you're upset. Frequently, we do not use the best logic. We don't make the best choices when we get that upset. We have kind of lost our composure. And at that point, counter-racism, kind of goes out the window. Frequently, logic goes out the window. We really want to try and make a concerted effort to keep our composure. That's at the core of counter-racism, particularly on the job. It's been my experience, whites, that's one of the things that they try to do, is to get us upset, get us emotional. They know how to handle emotional black people. There's a long track record worldwide of them easily being able to handle rowdy, angry, emotional black people. They got that for days. That's no problem for whites. Codified black people, not so much. A little more difficult. Also, I just wanted to point out, in the workplace, I think it's logical and in our best interest to never think we are having a private conversation with a white person or a non-white person in a workplace setting. I think I've said for a long period of time, especially since we've been talking about the recording, every single conversation that you have, you're speaking as though everybody who works for this company, who's ever worked for this company, who's ever going to work for this company, is going to get a perfect transcribed copy of this dialogue. That's the way that I'm having conversations with people. I'm never in the habit of thinking, oh yeah, this is private. He doesn't have a recorder. That keychain that he has that's sparkling, that's not a USB recording device. No way. I just don't think that that's constructive for us to think, even if it seems like they're saying something that's constructive or logical, just because there's so much that we're in a system that is run by deception. And we've had a lot of folks who have testified that, hey, it seems like even sometimes race soldiers are able to get non-whites to be complicit with their deception. So I think it's unfortunately in our best, well, scratch the unfortunate, it's just following logic. I don't think we should be in the mindset of thinking we're having private conversations in a workplace setting. I hope that's reasonable, logical. Other folks that we've not heard from at all, if you have commentary. Thomas in New York, greetings.
Greetings, Gus. Greetings to all the callers. Yes, it's very difficult for our people to control our emotions, because pretty much all we've been left with due to the system is the if you ever been robbed and that feeling you have afterwards when they go on and you stay there, you like pissed, all you can do is you have that emotional response. That's all we can do. But I think that my codification at the workplace is I always try to practice deception to white people. So I'm constantly thinking of ways to confuse them. I mean, I'm trying to counter it my own way, but playing, when you're planning stuff, you kind of the emotions is out of it, because I have goals that I want to achieve. I don't know if that makes sense, but either way, this week at the workplace, this is French lady. Now this was this was one of the most uncomfortable feelings I've ever had at a workplace. I had a headache, so I had a Tylenol, pack of Tylenol. They have them at the workplace in the medicine pack. Tylenol, Advil, or Aleve, So I grabbed a pack of Tylenol, and I opened it, and I had a bottle of water with me, and I was getting on the elevator on my way to lunch, and this French lady comes walking toward me, because she is also about to get on the elevator. So I put the Tylenol in my mouth and opened the bottle of water and, swallowed it. And she says, "Oh, you need some good stuff." Then she comes over and whispers to me, "You got any cocaine?" And I said, "What?" And she said, "Oh, this is America. Everybody does it." And I said, "I don't." So she said, "Oh, I'm just joking with you." And then the elevator door opened. So she got on the elevator, and I said, "I left something." So I went right back to the receptionist and told her exactly what just happened. So just in case, I let someone know right away what happened. And either way, same white lady walking to her side of the office, because I have one of my duties is to change the light bulbs in the office. And we have the long halogen lights, the long lights that you gotta kind of line them up and slide them in and turn them, to get on a ladder and do it on the ceiling lights. So they're toward the back of the office where her desk happens to be at. So either way, I'm in walking past her, and she grabs my wrist. And she does this to me all the time. She grabs my wrist. And it's like, I don't know if that's like a control thing, but I feel like I always pull my hand away. But she grabs my wrist, and and she puts her arms out and says, "I need a hug." So I scooted past her. I'm standing there with these two big halogen lights. I'm like, listen, I'm busy. So she's, "Oh, come on, I'm just playing." And then she goes and sits back at her cubicle. And I'm like, so of course, I go and of course, I'm writing all this stuff down, sending myself little notes in my Outlook, But either way, I go and tell the, me and the receptionist are just cracking. Like, yo, this lady is off the chain, Either way, now, Gus, I've been at this company since January. And since I've been there, I've only had to change 4 of those long light bulbs. When you go to the back of the office where you get the light bulbs from, there are like a whole bunch of light bulbs that I guess have been changed in the past. That's just, sitting there leaned up against the wall. So either way, when I used this light bulb the other day, that was the last one, the last new one in the whole office. So I'm like, listen, I need to get some light bulbs. So, of course, the little white lady in charge, she walks back there. You should mean there's no more light bulbs. Like I'm lying about the light bulb. And then she walks back there and she blames me for all these light bulbs, that's been sitting there. I said, listen, since I've been here, I only changed 4 of these light bulbs. These have been here. This is where I was told to put them at after I changed them. That's what I've done. Oh, nonsense. This is ridiculous. I want you to box them up. I want you to find someone who recycles them and da-da-da-da. So I do that, right? Box these up. 117 light bulbs. I've only changed 4, okay? Either way, you had light bulbs that were so old, like they don't even make them like that anymore. But either way, so I, got reprimanded very abruptly and loudly for that. By the white terrorist, but of course, I expect that from her. So that's just how it works. And other than that, man, working this week has been the most difficult as far as getting around because they have the UN General Assembly and the people are all over the place, the police, the Secret Service. I'm 1 block away from there. It's hard to just cross the street and do my regular job. It takes something that takes 5 minutes. Normally takes 25 minutes now. Security checkpoint here. But one thing I found interesting, and I don't know, I'm just observing. They had this huge protest out there, and all the signs were in another, in Korean language. But the Korean people spell Korea C-O-R-E-A. And I said, wow, why y'all, but they didn't speak English. I was asking, why y'all spelling it wrong? But how I'm telling them they spelling it wrong. So I'll mute my line too.
That's funny. Wow. That's quite a report. I guess it's stymieing. I guess we'll go with the cocaine situation. Was there like a final, like you said, you went to report it immediately, which is spectacular. Make notes, document, nothing to hee-haw and joke about. A white person, or really even a non-white person, really, coming and whispering to you about narcotics in the workplace. That is, take that seriously. Was there any sort of final resolution about this or comment, emphasizing, no drugs in the workplace or anything?
Oh no, Gus, I left it right there because, like I said, it was shocking to me. Have someone even mention cocaine at work. It was like, like, whew. Then you mention it to a black, a person that's classified as black. It's like, what you think, I get high or something? Like, I'm just, it was just like shocking. So all I could do was let her go. And, I found it to be funny in a way too, because this very same thing happened to me when I was in high school. This white girl who, when I told her where I lived, oh man, can you get me? And I was like, what? Even though at that time I probably could have, because I knew, but I don't deal with that, but either way, I just found that to be extremely interesting. Gus. Never had that asked before. Even though I have worked in jobs, and you know, I told you before when I used to move desks and stuff, and I see a lot of white people who have had evidence that that's what they do, you know, but they were real high up on the food chain. So what you gonna say about it? One thing in corporate jobs in New York, they don't even give you a drug test.
Wow. Take it seriously. The thing that, or one of the things that stood out that I thought was super important as well, you started your report before the fondling and give me a hug and cocaine and what'd you do with all our light bulbs? You said you had a headache before you're going in, and I think that's significant. I know you talked about, you know, different health problems before, and I think headaches are significant. I don't think it's normal to have headaches, and just, yeah, I think that toxicity of that sort of work environment. And then you were talking about the stress of the commute, which I guess we don't talk about it a ton. I think Roz and a few others have talked about, you know, commuting issues, but that's a part of it too. I think there's so much stress around that it causes headaches, a variety of ailments, John Henryism, a variety of problems. Forgot to mention that with Miss Morris, her husband, when she said she was stepping down from her office in Vermont with his heart problems and what have you. That right there, workplace racism and all of the stress from that terrorism and having to deal with that, and racists trying to come up and fondle and molest you throughout the day and then accusing you of this, oh, you broke, you know, the lights, or you broke the toilet and all them. Anywho, black health, very important. Hope you are doing as best you can to take care of your health and finding something to relax. We talked about that last week, finding things that are healthy to help you deal with all of that stress from the workplace. Maybe yoga. Other folks that we have not heard from at all, if you have commentary, line should be open. Proceed.
May I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Greetings, Ivy. We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Greetings, Gus. Now I'm at the point where, okay. So I just wanted to quickly pull up my notes. Greetings, Gus. Greetings to all the callers on the line. I just wanted to say to the man who had the incident with the person from the Dominican Republic, I wanted to say, you know, please don't beat yourself up about losing your cool, as they say. I mean, I don't know how when you make an emotional decision how that affects men, but I know for myself, I tend to beat myself up when I make emotional decisions, and I tend to do that often, make emotional decisions. But what I wanted to say is that I implore you, as best you can, that even when you are upset, to never say anything negative about a supervisor, because I believe that's what you said, because even the person whom you were talking to, that person in the future, if they're upset with you, they could go back and tell that person. So that can always come back on you. I think it's very, very important not to do that. And as far as, like it's so true what Gus said about never thinking that you're having a private conversation, and to just always assume that everything that you are saying is going to be up on the jumbotron, like, you know, how you see them at basketball and football games. I remember you said that you couldn't get away. I think, like, if you had to go to the restroom or it was some kind of emergency, you would find a way. So maybe an idea that I thought of that maybe you could do in a situation like that is you could just excuse yourself to go to the restroom and let somebody know, hey, I have to go to the restroom, or, you know, some type of emergency, because in my view, it is an emergency. And man, Gus, the story that you and I wish you the best with that. The story that you shared about the man who just, you know, who's the white male who was high as a kite at the club. You tell us sometimes about, you know, these drug addicts that you see, and I believe it was Capitol Hill and things like that. I just think that they're there needs to be more of that. I'd like to hear more stories about these rowdy whites, because they always try to say, you can see on Dateline every week they're killing each other for the insurance money and everything else, and they're always saying, oh, this stuff doesn't happen here, but most of the crime is coming from white people, so yes, it does. Last thing I wanted to quickly say for the resident expert, man, for the race soldier who refuses to say your name, that just really speaks to Gus's definition of racism. If that is not dedication, I don't know what is, as well as the thing about rifling through your drawer and how she should have known by at least the second time. I mean, this race soldier is just dedicated to practice racism against you and to abuse you psychologically by refusing to respect you and refusing to get your name right. I wanted to share later on about codification with other victims and not getting into conflict, but I don't want to speak ahead of people who have something to share from their personal experience at work of problems that they may be experiencing, because I don't have that to report. So if there's time, I'll chime back in with that. But thanks, everyone. Thanks, Gus. I'll mute my line.
Much obliged, Ivy. Great suggestions, especially not talking bad about quote-unquote supervisors and what have you. Great recommendations. Other folks who dialed in with a hand up, if you have commentary to share, line should be open. Proceed.
Can I be heard?
Greetings, codified software developer, Wisconsin.
Greetings, Gus. Greetings to all the callers and listeners. So in response to your question, I think that the recommendations of not speaking badly about non-white people or engaging in any sort of, or participating in any sort of denigration of non-white people is highly important. I think I've shared before that the non-white, non-black male at my job routinely gets harassed, told his work is subpar in a very joking fashion, and just not by laughing, or just by not laughing, that's mitigated a lot of the conflict that we could have had. So I appreciate that. Also, I've been in situations with white people where they have attempted to speak badly about this person or about another non-white male at my job, and I have not engaged in speaking badly about those people, and in fact have complimented those people instead, and that seems to be very helpful, as it not only minimizes the conflict, but it also stops the race soldier from engaging in that behavior with you. I think Mr. Williams has discussed that as well, in terms of just saying, well, how can we help this person, and how effective that can be in stopping that behavior around you, period. As an aside, there's another non-white Indian male, an intern at my job, who he hangs out with the white guys. He's looking for white validation all the time, and so that leaves him open to mistreatment by these white people. And so I guess he was coming in for getting his lunch. There's a small grocery store across the street, and I guess he drove there, and you can see the parking lot and the road from the break room, the third floor break room at the company I work at. And I guess the white males were in the break room, and they were like, oh my God, did you see that? He almost hit that person. So when he comes in here, we're just going to lay into him, and we're going to tell him that he almost killed that lady, and he's going to be so upset, and they're planning this, and they're trying to get me involved, and I'm like, and so the young man comes in, and they start in with this, oh my God, you almost killed that lady. How dare you? And, and the non-white male is getting visibly upset He's getting visibly angry. He's defending himself. And I turned to him and I said, can I ask you a question? And he said, sure. And I said, why are you defending yourself? Why are you explaining anything to them? And he said, oh, that's a good point. And then he stopped. So I think that's another way of minimizing conflict is actually by sharing counter-racist suggestions with non-white people without speaking about racism, but just sharing a suggestion that could be helpful. In regards to my workplace, actually I have a story from my sort of moonlighting job, my side hustle. I do sometimes edit video for a black videographer here in Milwaukee, and he does a lot of weddings, and he brought me some video, and it's a tragic arrangement, black male, white female. And, on one hand, I do not agree with this. I don't think it's very logical if we're in a system of white supremacy. Yes. If we're in a system of white supremacy, I don't think it's very logical to have sex. If we're in a war-type situation, I don't think it's very logical to have sexual intercourse with your enemy. That being said, I understand that this non-white person could be very confused. I don't know if he is or not, but, based on the behavior, could be very confused. And so I've really had to practice a lot of empathy while editing this video, and there has been quite a bit of racism in this video, including one of the bridesmaids, the white bridesmaids, telling somebody that she was fluent in ebonics, quote unquote. They jumped the groom, which I thought was very interesting, and the non-white male's brother said that was a European tradition. I guess it is, in a sense. During the toast period, I guess this couple had offspring prior to getting married. They had a few offspring prior to getting married. And at the toast, most of the white people that got up to speak were saying, well, it's about time. It's about time. You should have done this a long time ago. And just berating this non-white male. And at the end of the video, they're giving their goodbyes or whatever. The videographer I work for likes to get this final interview, final goodbye from the marrying couple, and she's smiling, and he looks so despondent, and he's just like, well, I did it. And I feel, I feel awful for this guy because I'm pretty sure that he is having to experience terrorism consistently and constantly. And to Ivy and JNNYC, I am getting back to you as well as to you, Gus. And with that, I'll mute my line. Thanks.
Much obliged. Outstanding counter-racist performance. Codified software developer in Wisconsin. Outstanding, as usual, what we have come to expect, and sharing constructive information with another victim while staying in the question lane. Who can do it better? Man, outstanding. But yeah, that's that right there. And just seeing how you were able to see how that was orchestrated. Now that's just for a racist little prank type deal. And you see the Voltron effect right there. Mr. Fox keeps Voltron effect right there to come together for a racist joke on the spot. Oh yeah, he almost hit somebody. Good, we'll harass him. All right, you'll do the okay. Now imagine when it's something serious, a promotion, a raise. Who's gonna get hired? Like, oh my. But great way to not participate. That's in Black Love is a Revolutionary Act as well. Theory of non-participation. Brilliant. Other folks can share their thoughts as well if you have commentary on anything that's been shared thus far, or if you have your own situation. Lines should be open. Proceed.
Happy heard. Hello.
Greetings, big victim in Alabama.
Yes, Gus, I would like greetings to all the callers. I love my job. I drive a big truck. I listen to the cows. My day starts off with, basically, I listen to the cows I set it up. I put it on. I put my phone on. Watch later. I listen to an episode of The Cows or listen to some other kind of racist soldiers. Tariq Nasheed, TDA. I set it up about 5 hours worth of listening, then I take off driving. So when I get out the truck, I usually be, somebody say something to me, I usually be coded up. I practice my code is keeping my head down and be on the lookout, be aware of my surroundings. Do I get racism practice on me? Yes, I do, but I just keep my head and know that I'll be going back to my truck, getting down the road. So, I don't work in a situation where I got to be up under white folks all day. I come in, my day, when I go pick up my load, I go in, how everybody doing? All right. Ask for my load, get my paperwork, I'm out the door, back down the road, because I'm on a dedicated, it's called a dedicated route for people that don't drive trucks. I go to the same places every day, same people every day. Go in, when I get to my destination, I take my paperwork, they sign it. Have a good day, driver. Have a nice day. I'm out the door. Take my break, sit back, relax. Now when I come back to our terminal, I have a couple of, now it's one person, it's a black person it's that black person that knows everything that's going on up at the company. And I'll share this. He had to go and repossess a Qualcomm. The Qualcomm is what a truck driver gets all his load information, and it was in the owner-operator's truck. So another truck driver was telling me about it. Master told him the drive was broke down. They was up there. Master was up there worrying about if that owner operator had enough money to get his truck out the shop. So one driver before him, now pay attention, listeners. Now one driver before him couldn't get his truck out the shop. So that driver that couldn't get his truck out the shop called the master and asked him, could he get some money to get his truck out the shop? They said, no, we can't do that. So this driver that I'm talking about, he had the money to get his truck out, but it was going to take some days. So they assumed that this driver, the driver couldn't get his truck out. So they sent the black person that I'm talking about to go repossess the Qualcomm, get all equipment out the truck, in which he did. So I went in when I seen him. I went up to him and I said, "Hey man," I said, "I heard you the repo man." He said, "Man, he said, you right. Whatever them folks," he said, "whatever them white folks tell me to go do, I'm gonna go do it." He said, "I know who told you," and he named the person off who told, which it was. But I told him, I said, "Nah, I ain't gonna tell you who told me." But he said, "I know who told you." I said, "Nah, it was. I'm not gonna tell you who told me." But he said, "Man, I got 4 children, man. Whatever that man tell me what to do, I'm gonna go do it." I said, "Man, I ain't mad at you." I said, "I understand. Trust me." Now, to everybody, to some listeners might say, "Man, he's a coon," or this and that. But I'll tell you, like, we down here in the South and that stuff's still going on. You know, I'm liable to be out there, you know, whatever them folks tell me to go out here and do, I got to go do it, you know, this and that and everything. We, like you say, Gus, we all been compromised. But I understood what he did. What you might say, well, he might have been a coon. But to me, he was, you know, he doing what he got to do to survive. Like I said, when I listen to a lot of programs, everybody calling each other a coon, this and that. I used to be on that bandwagon, but by listening to the cows and everything, Neely Fuller, Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, we all been compromised. So I'm slow. I don't really, since listening to the cows, I don't really get it. When a black person do something on the job, I really overlook it. Even with these white people, I just stay cool. I know where they're coming from. I know what I'm in. I know what I'm dealing with, and I know, well, hey, this interaction with them, I deal with a whole lot of racists on the job. But from learning, man, I sit back and I remember what on the cows, listening to the cows. No contact, no conflict. I get, you know, like I said, my process is when I have contact, I limit it. It takes me about 5 minutes. I don't sit out. I go in, get my paperwork, and that's a process of 5 minutes. Anything over 5 minutes, it means I'm having a conversation with them. And I don't do all that. When I come in, I greet everybody and all the dispatchers. Hey, how y'all doing? This and that. I say, hey, driver, this and that. Where y'all want me to go next? They get my paperwork and I'm out the door. So I'll be sitting back and I tell anybody, oh, listen, if you able, and Kyle listener, I think it's Rob from Milwaukee. Now he stays in San Diego. I've been meaning to get in contact, calling up the show to tell him he'll be a good candidate to go get his CDLs. Because I literally, it took me off the streets. It was one time Big Victim was homeless. 9/11, when 9/11 hit, I was working at a department store, and it was a white driver. He backed up. I was working out of a temp agency down here in the South. You go down there, you go. If you want to go to, it's like a day labor. You go down there and show up for work, and they'll send you out to different jobs and everything. So that's what I was doing before I became a truck driver. I was out on the streets and everything. So I just white driver backed up, and that's it. I looked at it
because it's seeming like a lot of different narratives.
I'll pick it up next time. But yeah, thank you for letting me share, Gus. I'll pick it up next time if somebody else don't. I mean, for some, I'll give the flow to somebody some other caller want to talk. Thank you for letting me share, everybody.
For sure, much obliged for sharing, Big Victim. Definitely will encourage you to resume the narrative with 9/11 to kind of give us how you got into doing the trucking business. But I appreciate just immensely the efficiency where you've codified it to where you should be able to go in and get some of these tasks done in less than 5 minutes. If it's taking more than 5 minutes, that means you've engaged in some sort of lengthy dialogue and trying to minimize those as best you can. That is marvelous. That efficiency, being efficient, getting things done, and then just not lingering. The more that you're lingering, you know that you're talking to other racists. Now, you know, I'm going to have to hear something or whatever it is. Also, the system of white supremacy is global, certainly not confined to the South. That is popular mythology. We could be in Greenland, England, pick a place on the map. South Korea, that was mentioned, North Korea, we would still be having the problem of white supremacy racism. So very important. Try to dispel that one on a regular basis. In terms of other victims and how they're responding, just following logic. I think you said that repeatedly. We are all still subject to the system of white supremacy. And if that's the job, they tell you to go and, repossess whatever it is. That's the job. Are you going to tell them no? I think they'll gladly find another nigger to take your place, or even give you a job to a race soldier. That's even better. So, yeah, that's the job. I mean, it's no, the person to get upset with is whoever gave them the directive to go and do whatever. If there's going to be some getting upset at all, following logic. Before we hear from Stacey in the UK, we had a request, because she's been so diligent for such a long time, a while ago, I think this was last year, before the flood, to swap workplace racism and the book club, so that workplace racism would be on Friday, same time, 8 p.m., and the book club would be on Thursday at 8 p.m. I really don't have that much of a problem with the switcheroo, because we would be on either day and we'd be on at the same time. So it doesn't really make that much of a difference to me. Stacey, however, said that she thinks, or at least it would make a difference for her, because she's up so late. I always try to timestamp when she's on the program. She's up so late. If we were doing this on a Friday, it would be staying up late on a Friday night, which a lot of people do for non-constructive reasons anyway, because they don't have to get up so early on Saturday. That was her request. I didn't really hear pushback. I didn't really hear folks saying, yay, we should do that either. So I'm floating that like seriously. I mean, she's participated for such a long time at, let's see, if I just heard her over there, it is 2:42, about to be 2:43 a.m. to stay up and hang out and chat with us week after week. She's been here so long. I think we should go ahead and swap if that would make it a little easier in her life for it to be on Friday, and then she could sleep late after staying up late to hang out with us. We should go ahead and swap, unless somebody has, major problem that it would really mess things up for them being able to participate in workplace racism on a Friday instead, or you do participate in the book club and it would really mess things up if it was on a Thursday. Like, we should go ahead and do that, I think, if that would make it easier for Stacey. And she said others. It was not just a personal thing. She said she thought that other non-white people who are in other parts of the globe would perhaps be more willing to participate if it was on a Friday late, because then they could just sleep later for Saturday. And we have had other people, South Korea, we have had other folks who called in for workplace racism. Even last week, we had someone call in who was in another part of the world for workplace racism. So I could see where it might be a benefit. Is that still your stance, Stacey, that this would be helpful if this were on a Friday night instead for you?
Hi, Gus. Hello to you and the rest of the callers. Actually, yes, it would do, because obviously, well, for me, I don't get up on a Saturday for work, so that would be easier. But obviously, that depends on the feedback from other callers. But yeah, I would appreciate it, and I do think other people would find it beneficial as well. But I will leave that to other people to comment on as well. In terms of an update, I'm going to be quick because I always think I've been talking for too long after I listen back to it. So I shall try very hard to be concise. To Thomas in New York, I spoke last week about getting regular headaches. They've actually subsided, I think, because I've switched up my code in that I'm trying to be more detached from work, although that is not easy. So yeah, and I'm always kind of horrified to listen to the things that he goes through and the impact on his health. So I do wish him well with that. And just to say, keep away from the French woman, because I do think she was trying to set you up there. So that was excellent how you responded to her and to report it. In terms of the question that you asked us about minimizing contact or minimizing conflict rather with non-white people. In terms of my stance, how I've operated since I've gone back to the workplace is I've made a definite point of minimizing contact. Not to say that I do not speak to non-white colleagues, but I try as hard as I can to keep the conversations to a minimum, if not zero, and just smile when I need to, and to keep the conversations very work focused. I do like big victims codification, actually, timing those conversations. I might employ that myself just to ensure that I'm on code. And I've not been in the office because I've been on leave, trying to just get some self-care in. So I guess this week has been a good week because I haven't been there. And I don't actually have to have any involvement with the organisation again until next week, Tuesday, although I won't actually physically be in the office until Wednesday. So, just trying to, replenish my stocks, if you like. But two things I'd like to talk about, because it's come up quite a few times on the programme, surveillance, and this is from a job that I had years ago. I guess what I've realised along the way is that I think I'm an uppity nigger in the eyes of white people, suspected racists, because of the things that they do and the things that they say to me. And I had a boss, and I should have known anyway what was in store at this organisation, because when I went for the interview, the first thing she said to me when she opened the door for me was, "Oh, we thought you were white." And that was literally as she was let me through the door. And I mean, that was foreshadowing, if that's not in the code book, foretelling what was about to come. Anyway, she used to spend her time making comments about non-white people, how she used to get ill-treated at school, because, particularly by black females, because she apparently is white, but she had frizzy hair, and so she used to use an Afro pick, and the girls used to pick on her, claiming that she thought she was black. And I did actually wonder if she was, she had some black in her, not because she looked it, but because she just was fixated. But anyway, I mean, certainly she was racist. Anyway, one evening, she persisted to give me a lift home. She kept offering me a lift, and I did not want this lift home. But she just continued so much that I ended up agreeing to it because she just wouldn't leave it alone. And this lift, actually, to give me a lift, probably, I worked it out afterwards, probably took her 20 miles out of her route home, because she lived on the other side of London to me. So it would have been, sort of probably 10 miles there, 10 miles back, before she got to her, wherever she, the direction she was supposed to be going in. Anyway, so she drove me home, ended up going the wrong way down the wrong way street, because obviously she didn't know the area. Luckily, we were not killed. And then when she got to my destination, at the time I lived with my parents, and this was just purely surveillance, because she got to the doorstep and I definitely wasn't going to let her in. And at the end of it, when she realised I wasn't going to let her in, she started and she said, "Oh, well," obviously I thanked her and everything and wished her good night. And she said, "Well, I just want to say you're going to be loaded when your parents die," and left it at that. And so that was the end of that story. But, she just wanted to check me out. And she used to make comments all the time about, everything. The way I walked, apparently I had a very authoritative walk and all kinds of things. She was just absolute fruitcake. Anyway, so that's that. And then just one more about the Voltron effect, because you just mentioned it and you reminded me. I won't mention the particular case, but it did make national headlines in the UK. this actually pertains to a family member who used to work for a local authority, so council, and his job at the time was a carpenter. And he, when they were doing evictions, the council would, or probably still does, take a carpenter with them to board up the premises, and then also a member of the police, just in case, I guess, there's any kind of disruption. And I don't know if this is every single time or where they just expect there to be some kind of conflict. But anyway, quite often there'd be a member of the police there. So there was, as I said, there was a case. And because there was some kind of police corruption, the person ended up getting released. And that affected, I guess it upset certainly the police in London, if not nationally. And the family member had been on holiday, had no involvement, no trouble with the police whatsoever. Come back on his way to pick up his car, and because he'd borrowed it to his friend. And at the time, he had actually 3 vehicles, all legally owned. One that he used for work, one, to sort of carry his tools around, so it's a van. One that used to drive to and from places, and then another one that he used for other purposes. But so no reason to be stealing cars, put it that way. And he was on his way to his friends to pick up one of them because he'd borrowed it to him while he was on holiday. And he got dragged into a van, a police van, by, I don't even know how many police officers it was. And they were beating the hell out of him. And luckily he was quite a calm person. And he actually said that he knew that if he fought back, he wouldn't have come out of that van alive. And basically, as they were beating him up, they were saying this is for the one that got away, because the person who had been released was a non-white male. And the sad part about it is because what they'd done is they'd claimed that he was trying to steal a car, and they knew he wasn't. And the sad part about that was that there was police in that van beating him up who knew him personally because they were involved with the evictions. And as I said, there were times when police officers would have to be on site or, going to those calls to do the evictions. So he knew some of those police officers, and they still beating the hell out of him in that car. He did take it to court, and they settled out of court, and so he was awarded damages. But Gus, I think if you were ever going to give a definition of the Voltron effect, I think that would be it. And I'll mute my line.
Context of white supremacy. That didn't happen in Alabama. That didn't happen in Georgia. Global system of racism, white supremacy. We thought you might have been white too. Guess you fooled us as well, Stacy. That in a workplace context is interesting. If someone were to ask that, great opportunity to come back with a question. Why would you say that? Just to see what they say. I'm not. Is that a problem? Another question. But that is, I think we've heard that a few times in terms of someone, a white person, saying that in a workplace context. If other folks, Voltron effect, say that again, Voltron effect. Other folks, if you have commentary you would like to share, if we've not heard from you, number again, 641-715-3640, the code 564943 pound. Press *61 if you would like to participate. Folks, we have missed completely. If you have a hand up, proceed.
Good evening. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Greetings to everyone on the line. I'd like to share. This was when I was in college, so that was, considered my workplace at the time. And I was taking a course, and the course I was taking, ironically, was it was a logic course. It was a course on logic, and I was doing really, really well in the class. I had the highest grade in the class throughout the entire semester. My instructor was a suspected racist white male, a white man. In his appearance, he was obese, a white male that wore, eyeglasses and had a ponytail, and so he kind of gave off this this aura of being, I guess, a hippie or a liberal, quote unquote, so to speak. And again, so I was doing well in the class. It was as far as the mix or the demographic of the racial demographic of the class, it was a good mixture. I would say quite possibly there was, it was a good mixture. I would say it was a mixture of white people, non-white, non-black people, and black people as well. So I was doing well in the class to the point where I was even, kind of tutoring non-white, black students as well in the class, and I was giving a lot of assistance. Anyway, so along came our final, and this was quite some time ago. Our final came along, and we were assigned some essay questions, and we were supposed to turn it in to the instructor online, or through email, or electronically, should I say, or through email. So I did the assignment and sent the assignment in through email. And so I would periodically check for my final grade, because I was really making an attempt to keep my grade point average high, because I lack self-respect, and I wanted to, take some pride in getting good grades. I wasn't such a great student in high school, so I kept checking my grade, and I wasn't seeing my final grade. Then finally, I did see it after I checked, and my grade average went from a very high A to a C. And so I immediately contacted this instructor through email, like, "Hey, why is my grade? What happened to my grade?" And this final was highly weighted in the class, and he replied to me that he never received my final, my email. So and I was a lot more confused at the time. So, I took it to maybe, I did had a very vague, not a solid, I guess, definition of racism at that point, me being more confused. So I took it as him being incompetent, and maybe some racism, like maybe this guy just, I believe I was the only black male in that class. And I kind of, replied in this email, I was kind of upset, and I just replied to him, but my grade point average wasn't greatly, significantly affected, but it was affected. So I kind of just, took it. I didn't, And if knowing what I know now, I would have took this further up, definitely above him to his supervisor, the dean of students, or some. I would have took that up with someone else, because I turned in that, and he didn't even try to work with me and try to say, hey, sir, you've been doing so well in the class. If he did in fact not receive my final, he could have. I would say he could have asked me and say, hey, what's going on? I didn't see your final. You're doing well in the class. I wouldn't want your grades to suffer that much. But this so-called hippie, white, liberal, whatever, didn't care whatsoever. And one more anecdote I would like to share, and it's regarding school again. I'm definitely not here. I'm still confused. I'm not here to brag on my grades, but when I do apply myself, I do tend to get good grades. I was in another course that was known to be very difficult, and the first exam, we were talking to students of this class that were there before, and they were all talking about how this first exam was kind of like a weeding out process with this. Like, if you did horribly on this exam, you're probably not going to do well in the class, and if you fail this class, you're out of this particular program that I was in. So this first test, I was, again, very focused. I studied. I was very, I did very well on the test, this first significant test. And I'm in a class where it's the overwhelming majority of the students are white females. I'm one of two black males in this class. And again, it's a class maybe 40, high 30s or low 40s. And again, mostly white females, a few, maybe 5 or so non-white, non-black females in class. Anyway, so I did very well on the test. And older white female instructor, she, I forgot it was some time ago, she announced my grade to everyone, to the whole class, and was like, oh, he got the highest score in the class. And, of course, I got these, some genuine, yeah, good for you. But I think she was practicing racism there, because I got a lot of unwanted attention from these white females. Some were trying, being overly friendly with me, and then a lot of them were. It was like a hint. I could sense some jealousy from them. Like, how's this nigger out here scoring higher than me? So it kind of set the tone for the rest of me being in that program with these, because we were in the same core classes for this program for quite some time. Anyway, that's all I'd like to share. Thanks for letting me share.
Wow. That is calculated racist attack in my view. I've seen other situations where whites do that sort of thing, where it should be something to be, hey, we got a scholar right here. He did a great job on the test. You all should study with him. Like, exemplary words. It's not that. It's more like, this nigger here, like chief nigger in the classroom, best grade in the class. And even as you said, like at a more sinister level, like, oh, I'm going to be in class with these folks for the next however long, years sometimes it takes to complete some of these programs, inefficient way that whites have it set up. And now they're like, oh, I got to go through this program, and this nigger is the chief competition. He's the one we're going to have to be battling with to get top honors. Like, oh, man. Like, and if nothing else, getting a lot of attention from racists, white female racists at that, to get a lot of attention on you. And generally speaking, no disrespect to the late, great Tupac Shakur, but generally speaking, you probably do not want a lot of racist eyes on you. unless that is a part of your plan. When it's some racist is directing attention at you, oh man, like an attack is probably forthcoming. We will pause there. Other folks, if you have commentary, thoughts to share, if you have suggestions, in fact, I will even pause here so that I can read. I said we had folks who wrote commentary in the email again, untiljustice@gmail.com. Untiljustice@gmail.com. Person wrote in, non-white female. I want to thank you for the advice on acting like everything you are saying is being recorded. This has helped me to think better with regards to the way I speak at work. It's also aided me in avoiding certain conversations. I was just listening to the workplace this morning, and I live in San Francisco, Bay Area. 415. The image I shared with you a while ago with the patient with all the non-white workers surrounding her is from San Francisco General, the hospital. While working there as a student nurse going in for clinicals, I did see a small group of 12 black people rally. I think it was the same group from the clips you played on Thursday. This was last Thursday. The white employees at San Francisco, black employees at San Francisco General, they had a rally protesting racist work conditions and bullying, and they were trying to get the attention of whites who could solve this problem to do something so that more black employees could get promotions and to stop the racist harassment in the workplace. That I played that at the beginning of the program last week for workplace racism. So this person, San Francisco resident, continuing with what they wrote in. I was rushing to go in to start clinicals, so I couldn't stop. When I came back later, they were done. So I asked a black female that worked in the hospital what the rally was about. She had no idea what I was talking about. In San Francisco General, many of the patients are black, but I've only seen 2 black nurses. Both work at night. I started to write letters about several incidents and had to stop because it may violate HIPAA. That would be something interesting to check on in terms of how do you report incorrect conduct in the workplace without it violating HIPAA. I'm sure they have, if there's something incorrect practiced, I'm sure that would take precedence over HIPAA violation. I'm sure they have a way of, reporting incorrect conduct or violations without, violating any sort of HIPAA standards, I would think. But I also think that's why I say it's important in terms of paying attention locally to be able to have things happen right in your area and to not really be aware of what's happening. That's happened to me many times, or sometimes even people have spotted things that were happening right here in Seattle that I missed or was not aware of just because of, not paying attention or rushing around. We all get busy. We have, we're victims and have a lot of things happen. But I thought that was important as well, that she might have walked right by the rally right there in San Francisco that was about racism, white supremacy, and missed completely. And in fact, even some of the other black people, it seems, working there had no idea that right in front of them, a report of white supremacy being practiced right there in the workplace, and they missed it. I think that sort of thing happens frequently, unfortunately. Other folks who dialed in, we did get disconnected momentarily, but should be connected back. Thanks, everybody. I heard retired firefighter and the other folks holding it down in the interim. Did we miss any juicy tidbits, conversations while we were gone? Or while I was gone? Were you all talking about anything grand while I was gone?
I was about to speak on a particular subject because over the last couple of weeks, last week and also today, I've heard problems with one of the most frequent areas where workplace racism take place, and that's with post-high school education, college. And is very frequent where there's problems that are imposed upon non-white black people. In this case, they're students. And I would just ask a question: has anyone who has had this problem, and most of the problems that I hear on this program are with the instructors that the non-white black victim has. And my question is: has anybody ever considered attending a what is called a historical black college? I would say the reason why I say that is because I attended two of them, Langston University and Grambling State University, and some of the problems that I hear on this program, which are legitimate, I never had at those two institutions. I would say one of the reasons why is because, and I think it still exists today, that the employees, primarily the teachers at these schools, look at, first of all, that they're non-white black people, and also they consider the students as an investment. So they're going to really go, in some cases, go above and beyond, especially with me. That's what happened with me. They'll go above and beyond to assist that person into graduating from that school. And I'm just putting it in the form of a question. So, anybody who wants to comment on it, they can comment on it if they want to. Thank you.
Much obliged, retired firefighter. My quick response would be, I think at least the Grandcester, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, did consider what they call an HBCU, and I think she had some workplace racism issues at her chosen HBCU, Howard University in D.C., methinks. Other folks have commentary that they wanted to share. If you wanted to respond to a firefighter's question, or if you had your own situation of workplace racism that you wanted to report, or comments on what's been shared thus far, proceed. Certainly, if we missed anybody that we've not heard from at all, you should speak up now.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir. Greetings, caller in Florida.
Thank you very much, sir. Greetings to Gus, the host, the listeners and callers. I wanted to start out with as far as the earlier question about what to do about other non-white victims who you may get into conflict with. Agree with the suggestion that you should always try to leave, or just find a way to get away from that person. I would just say, see everybody later, see y'all later, or something like that, goodbye, or just peacefully exit the situation. Or what I would do is I would rush to speak and greet the person while saying sir to this person, a black male. And it's always worked for me. Like, how you doing, sir? Or Mr., what his name is. Because by doing that, you kind of cancel out anything that he is going to say that could be non-constructive. He'll just say, oh, well, good morning, and he won't say anything. At least that's from my experimentation, codification. That has worked for me. Or sometimes, even if it's not him, I will pick up the phone and I'll pretend to check my messages, and he won't even come talk to me. So just things like that I've tried to do, and for the most part it's worked. But as far as the racism, white supremacy, there was a couple that came in to apply, and I definitely think one of the people were white, and the other person, the female, she had an accent. So I don't know if this was a white person or not. I think it was. She was. and they got to the question about race. So he was like, well, I don't really care, and she kept asking him what should she put for him, because she was filling out the application for both of them. He wasn't even filling out his part. So he was like, go ahead and just don't put nothing. I don't see color. And the female says no, I do see color. I do. And I'm just going to put this. She said, I do see color. And she didn't really go into detail of what she meant, but she said she does see color. So I thought that was important. The next thing is today, I hadn't signed this paper about the new personnel regulations or the employee manual. They finally released it, and it's set to go into effect October 1st. So I just signed it today, and I put a notation on the bottom, and I said, I'm signing this in great confusion and uncomfortableness, and I said I would appreciate it if this document or if the document had more clarification to it. It was something to that effect, and I copied my signature, and then I gave it to the supervisor because she came out and she was talking about it. So I had saved a copy of it, and then I had some questions. I said I was very confused about the document, and in terms of the disciplinary actions, they got Group 1, Group 2, and Group 3 offenses. And I said I was going to talk to her about this, but one of my main concerns was about the employee safety. And now I wouldn't say it's a bunch of people out in the area, but there was 2 other black people, and there was a white coworker. And now the supervisor is talking to me, and I said I had an experience a couple of years ago, 2015, where this guy who was outside, and he was verbally threatening me, and I said he called me a nigger. I didn't say N-word, and you should have saw the reaction from especially the white person. I saw she stood up out of her chair like she was uncomfortable or something. And then the supervisor, she was like, oh my goodness. And I said yes, and this happened multiple times, and it didn't seem like anything was done about it. I reported it to my supervisor and the personnel, which is who I use the code name for the warden. At first, she seemed to be very, interested in trying to find a person, but then they ended up telling me that I could just try to avoid them, but I was like, I can't circumvent this person. And I said I was also asked to take a former white coworker of mine to her vehicle just when they was having a protest across the street. That was during a Michael Brown situation. So she was kind of just out. It didn't seem like she was trying to give too many responses. And then I said, well, are they gonna try to interpret this handbook in the next meeting? And she just outright said no. So then I just said, well, I'll have to have further discussion on this document another time, because it's a portion of it that says the Group 2 offense is like if anyone is threatened or intimidated on the basis of race or whatever by the use of racial slurs, that's in the Group 2 offense. But at the end of the Group 1 offense, it says harassment. They added a 30th principle under Group 1, and it says harassment depending on the severity and the type of offense. Now, that was confusing me, because this harassment, that was just added to this one for 2018. And the first one the last one was the guy's father, who was the last clerk. And that part about harassment wasn't on there. So a group 1 offense, you get 3 times before you're terminated. So that was one of the questions I was going to ask the supervisor. And that's the only thing that I have right now. And thanks for allowing me to share.
Outstanding. Excellent counter-racist examples, illustrations for us this evening with asking questions, codified software developer with that one, and then caller in Florida, signature, signing under confusion and reservation. I love it. And just saying it's not clear. I don't understand. And then you just go through and pinpoint. And I said that consistently. Read the policy and procedure. If they're having updates, we change things around. Read it, because this is what they will use when it's time to, we're going to mess with niggers. Incidentally, always, workplace, if you have been called a nigger, they are telling nigger jokes, anything where that word has come up, no N word. This is what it is, no sanitizing. And I found that works for you as a victim of white supremacy in terms of we're not going to sanitize. We are serious about dealing with this problem. Have it as, unsanitized and uncensored as possible as you go out the serious business of dealing with this problem. And at least in my view, I think it works in your favor, in your benefit as a victim of white supremacy. Anywho, but I think that's great with the signature, and have them explain and to the point where you're clear. I think in those situations, we're talking policy and procedure, and particularly we're talking disciplinary measures. Everybody should be unambiguously certain about what's going to happen if you violate, this rule or that rule, what the punishment is supposed to be for everybody. So yeah, you should be able to break it down and explain it so that I understand. Somebody gets paid a lot of money to put these manuals and policies together. They should be able to do so in a coherent manner. And particularly in my view, because those things sometimes sound like discretion, where they can kind of pick and choose how they're going to allocate punishments on a case-by-case basis, and that really allows for a lot of racism. But when the policy and procedure is ambiguous, when you can't really make sense of it, that also allows for racism, because you don't really know what to expect because it's not really clear in the policy. So always, I applaud everybody. Get clarity. Make sure that you understand clearly what's going down, policy and procedure. Other folks dialed in, if you have a hand up, if you have commentary to share, if you have your own situation, or if you have comments about what has been discussed thus far. If we've not heard from you at all, lines should be open. Proceed. Let's see. Wow, that is wacky. There are a few other people who dialed in on the switchboard, but it's taking some labor to get the other lines to cooperate. That is not had that much difficulty. Wow. Wacky. Okay, so the other people who dialed in, if we've not heard from you at all, line should be open. Proceed.
Hi, can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, James. Hi, Gus, and the rest of the callers. I am just basically calling to give you guys a little follow up on my workplace with some. What I did, I had been getting some really crazy calls because I'm looking for work. And what it's been happening is I've been getting a lot of scammers. So I told you guys last week that I got a scam. When they had me running all around, and I went out to the place, and then the place.
Your volume dropped really low. We can't hear you. Your volume is going up and down.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. So what happened was, I ended up, I've been looking for work on one of the websites for work for home. And they gave some good suggestions about different work from home sites, which are reputable. And you can always go to them to make sure the places are reputable. So I ended up getting, I guess it was another scammer. They tried to, get me to go through Hangouts to contact them. What they've been doing, they've been using like businesses that are actually real businesses, but the people that are offering you the jobs are actually scammers. So what I ended up doing this week was I reported it to the company that was talking that has more information about work from home, and they ended up putting it in their news the link, because what I did on my own, I reported it to the Bad Business Bureau, because I've been getting, and I suspect that, the suspects are behind it, because it's been so many, Gus, that, I had been bombarded by so many scammers that it's just been ridiculous. So I ended up reporting it to the Better Business Bureau. And also, the lady from the site, the work site, she told me to also report it to the FBI website, because when people send out scams, the FBI has a site where you can report these any type of incidences like that for internet fraud, internet scams and things like that. So I ended up reporting like 3 already. So I was pretty happy that I was I was proactive, and I didn't just sit back and allow this to happen. I did try to do the best that I can. Now, I don't know what's to come of it, but at least I did do my part as far as trying to maybe, hopefully, maybe stopping this from happening to somebody else. And plus, I was just basically just tired of being terrorized. I even got another call this morning. The call, because I'm learning to trust my instincts, and I'm so happy that this show continues to reiterate that, how you discuss Dr. Cambine, and just being in the system, coming up the way I came up, and it was not really natural for me to trust my instincts. It's always been natural for me to doubt myself. So I'm, gaining some more confidence in myself. So what I did is that when I was on a call with this people, he started asking me some questions, because it's right away I felt kind of funny. He started asking me questions about, is my name spelled exactly like it is on my Social Security card? He was supposed to be some type of contractor, contract worker for I guess a temporary jobs, but they're contractors supposedly. So national contractors. And then he asked me the date, my birth date, and things, and I just didn't feel comfortable, with giving him that information. So we just cut the call. So I was able to just stop that right in its tracks. So, I've been really going through it, with the runaround and a bunch of, been sent out on wild goose chases and just running around, and I'm just trying to do what I need to do, but it's just I've been getting a lot of interference. So, but I haven't been sitting back and just not doing anything about it. I've still been proactive and doing what I can to the best of my ability, and I just wanted to share that information in case anybody may need it in the future, if they should ever encounter a situation like that where they have been if they're out of work and somebody from a website, approaches them, they can always report it to the FBI's website. And that's all I have.
Much obliged, Draftomania. I'm sorry to hear you've had to deal with all of that unnecessary stress and strife. commented I've commented consistently for years, really, in terms of whites just wasting our time and finding a variety of ways, new ways to waste our time, and really needing to be mindful about that as best we can. So I'm sorry that you've had to be terrorized, particularly in that situation where you're trying earnestly to get work, to get employment, and to have to deal with the terrorism on that hand, and however they're contacting you and what have you. And then is this legitimate? And then even have to do all the reporting and everything. So I'm sorry that you're having to deal with that. Hopefully they will pursue some of the folks that are engaging in all this harassment and what have you. But it wouldn't even surprise me if there was some sort of targeted harassment of Black people who are attempting to use these apps or platforms or what have you for employment purposes. It just wouldn't surprise me. That seems standard for how whites would function and how they would operate, particularly for, as I said, Black people that are seeking employment. This is not, goofy time on the web just being, silly or what have you. Let's see. That is so ridiculous. Some of the
May
other
I make a comment?
Yes, ma'am.
Just real quick. This is Red in Nevada. I think that was Draftomania. So one of the things that maybe might help you is if the person that you're calling out to, that you are responding to, like their interview request or phone request, what have you, maybe if you Google the number that they're telling you to call, and then also if they ask them for like a website, also maybe see if they can send you an email. I know like people who want to like scam people, they can like mask their numbers and stuff like that. But also one of the things is that if they try to have like a counterfeit website, one of the things that I've noticed is like just clicking on like the different things. Like let's say if you said they're used like real company names. So let's say for instance, if they're using like, like Amazon, and they're saying, okay, well, this is their Amazon website. They'll send you a link or something like that. Definitely wouldn't, go to like, click on the link, especially if it's like from your own personal device. But if they send you something, let's say if they send you an email, and usually like with different businesses, if you click on like the name at the top of the business, it'll refresh the page or it'll take you to somewhere else. So if you go to Amazon.com, you click on Amazon at the top or whatever the name, it'll refresh the page. So maybe just kind of looking at that to see if these are real websites. And then, like I said, with the phone numbers and even contacting the company, sometimes they'll have, when you call companies, if it's not like a really large one, they'll have like a company directory. So just asking for the person's name, stuff like that. So maybe that might be able to help you to verify if this is like a legitimate, job request or interview or whatever, or if it's somebody just trying to scam you. And I'll mute my line. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to share one other thing, Gus. What I had to end up doing too, as a safety measure, because where I'm at, and I have had for years some very suspicious activity with the Wi-Fi service and things like that. I used to go to school online, and I was going to college, and they would turn off the same exact things that you're going through on your show would be happening to me also. Interference-wise, I'm trying to get paperwork in to my classes and things like that. So what I ended up doing, because thanks to you and your show, was listening to one of your archives, and a gentleman was talking about a VPN, and I just used it today, a free one, ran out, and I ended up just purchasing it because where I'm at, I'm with a bunch of people, and this situation that I'm going through already, have already had issues with this Wi-Fi or whatever, and they have a way of going into your Wi-Fi and just hacking into your system. I was looking at one place where they were actually playing music. They had hacked into my Wi-Fi, and I was hearing music coming from and hearing other conversations coming through my speakers and stuff. So, I just wanted to thank you, for just educating me with a lot of things that I had not known about, and I've been implementing, and I've been seeing some results. And I just did that today. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Much obliged. Context of White Supremacy, hopefully providing constructive info. Other folks, if we've missed you completely, if you have a hand up, line should be open. Proceed.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Greetings, everyone. Just call this up real quick. I got a scenario at work, and just to really quickly describe. At my work location, there's only 2 blacks. I'm one of the 2 blacks. There's like 2 Asians and maybe 2 Eastern Indians. All the rest are white. Out of about close to about 90 to 100 total people. So I've been there for a really long time, over 20 plus years there. And so the scenario happens more than once, and it happened today. It wasn't really directly towards me, but I've heard, my supervisor and other managers, about 2 or 3 people in the office there, they were kind of joking around about some process that has to be done and approved by others that are Indian, from India. They would have to approve a certain process in order to get certain things done. And so, long story short, there, they were laughing out loud about some of the things and making jokes about how some of the Indians would talk. And so they would literally kind of mock their accent or their way of vernacular of speaking, and literally laughing out loud about it, going back and forth and kind of role playing and kind of mocking their accent there. And I can hear it from outside of the office where they were all joking. And this has happened more than once, but again, seeing that it's not directly towards me, I'm really kind of hesitant about saying something about it, especially seeing one of the persons is my direct supervisor. And I know that it's coming a time where we would have to receive our upcoming promotions or increases, annual increases there. So I'm really kind of hesitant about saying anything. I'm kind of wondering if there's going to be some type of retaliation, like, well, who are you to try to tell us what to do and how to respond or how to carry ourselves in the office environment, pertaining to how we want to joke around, But what really kind of got me today was that it was happening, and it just so happened that we had a customer in-house who was Indian, but they just weren't there at the time. But they could have walked in at any time down that hall and heard them laughing and joking. They were that loud. So again, I'm just kind of wondering, soliciting some feedback there of what others may think, if I should say anything about it. Should I bring it to my supervisor's attention, saying, "Hey, I heard you doing this, yesterday or today, or I heard you doing it in the past. You really shouldn't do." Should I say something to my supervisor about his behavior? And again, not towards me, but in general, towards the behavior of mocking other nationalities there. That's pretty much it.
Fascinating. We will see if we can get some listener feedback. I think that's certainly logical. You know your schedule, so if you're up for some sort of review or performance evaluation, if it's raise time, promotion time, that is certainly logical to think about that. And that is a big part of counter racism, is making a decision about, do I want to speak up? Do you want to do something or not? And making that decision, and even these are the consequences, and whatever that might be, to honestly evaluate what those consequences could be, and am I willing to accept it and not moving forward unless the answer is truthfully yes, regardless of, whatever the possible outcomes could be. I'm willing to accept it. I obviously have a plan about, the best way that I want this to work out for me and other victims of racism who might be involved. But that's, something to consider in moving forward. So it might be one to perhaps not say anything. Maybe it's just about figuring out the best way to say something if you're going to say something at all. Did any folks have any thoughts on whether or not you would say anything at all? And if you do say something, what would you say?
Can I be heard?
Wisconsin.
Yes, sir. In regards to this situation, I don't necessarily think I would say anything. I would just make it a point not to engage in the same behavior. You said yourself that you are up for a review, and that may impact you negatively. I think the best, and I don't necessarily think that saying something will necessarily benefit you or the victims of racism. It's my experience, and I work with a lot of non-white, non-black Indian, so-called Indians, both who have immigrated here and who are on visas here, and those who have been born here. And it's my experience that white people are going to be white, as I said before, and they are going to mock any non-white person. So I don't necessarily know that it would actually make a substantive change for those non-white people, and it may be harmful to yourself. So I probably wouldn't say anything. I would just make sure I was not engaging in that behavior. Because I'm pretty sure your supervisor knows that they're saying these things, and probably has, if the supervisor is white, probably has engaged in some of the behavior himself. That's all I have. I'll mute my line.
Much obliged, codified software developer. So that is one for not making a comment, documenting, and non-engagement. Pam the Great, not participating in the behavior yourself. Other suggestions on would you say something in this situation? And if so, what would you say?
I guess.
Stacy in the UK, 3:45 a.m. Friday morning. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was just going to say I agree with the codified software. She's an analyst now. I wouldn't say anything because I don't think it's going to change the behaviour. And, that's the reality of it. I would just take those individuals off the suspect list, and as codified software analyst said, just make sure you're not indulging in the behaviour, and that sends a signal, because there is more than one way to communicate a message. We don't always have to actually say something with words. Behaviour can demonstrate your viewpoint as well. I'll mute my line.
2 votes for remaining silent. Any other folks with a thought on how you respond in this situation? Do you say anything or do you remain silent?
Can I be heard?
I'll be heard.
I heard both of you, Draftmania and Ivy. We'll do Draftmania first.
Okay. I agree with Stacy and the codified software developer. I would not say anything. I would take the suggestions of the group, of the COWS group, of recording everything. You may not be able to use it, but just make sure he documents and records everything. It's not going to change those people. If anything, it would put the target on his back also. So just make note of it. Stay out of it, and remain codified. And that's all I got.
Much obliged. Ivy?
For what it's worth, I agree with everything everyone has said. I'm in my line.
Right on. Any folks think that something should be said? We have anybody here who says, hey, I think, this is a time to speak up, and this is what I think should be said. All righty. If such a person hears this in the archive, please, untiljustice@gmail.com, because I would be very interested, especially if not just, you all are coons and, you should have spoke up, you don't have any credit, but no, I think something should have been said, and this is what to say. If it's a question or policy and procedure, this is what to say that will solve this problem without creating any new problems. If you have a response that fits that bill, untiljustice@gmail.com.
Hey, Gus, can I just add real quick?
Let's hear it.
Yep. So I did raise this question with someone who's doesn't call into the show or listen to the show. So I had one person vote on the opposite side, said, yes, I would say something. And that may even be a reason for them to give you a promotion, because you're kind of like holding this over them because you know that they said this. So that's one person kind of voting on the opposite side saying, hey, now they know that you got something on them.
That's VGQ. If this was a non-white person, VGQ, I can only say that in my experience, a non-white person reporting suspected acts of racism by other employees generally has not boded well for them in the department of getting a promotion or a raise. I could be talking a little bit loony, but I would have a difficult time providing a list of these are the black people who that was their come up. I mean, boy, oh boy, like they got over the moment that they ratted out Ted and Lisa for practicing racism back there in the break room. Man, they got the big cushy office. It would take me a while. I could think of a whole lot on the other side. They reported racism and ended up getting fired. Security came and kicked them out. They had to get a cardboard box for all their belongings. Yeah, that happens pretty regularly. The other way, not so much. Can any of you all think of situations where somebody reported racism and it put them in a better position at work? Crickets. That's what I was expecting.
Gus, I was just going to say absolutely not. And I'm just wondering how close the male is to that so-called person who gave that advice.
Said he's not a cows listener, so who knows? Yes, Ivy.
Oh, sorry, Gus. I just wanted to quickly say, I think before it would give him a promotion or anything like that, I think the first thing that it would do is that it would make the racists there, make them very angry because they don't like that. That's why we talk about all the time, trying to even avoid using those words like racism. And in this case, it would, but usually we try to use different words like justice and things like that because it's because these people are racist and they don't like to be called out on that because they like their system. So I think that they could really move to find a way to fire him, and ultimately they wouldn't say those things. And truth be told, you can't have a case for retaliation, but they could still just find a way to fire you on some other type of technicality. So I personally wouldn't risk it. I'll mute my line.
Much obliged, Ivy. I reckon you can let us know how you handle things and how things proceed on in the workplace, even if they continue with that behavior, the racist shenanigans, which they, most likely will. Other folks have any final comments we want to get in last few minutes before we get ready to wrap things up?
Navier?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I figured since I spoke up, I was just trying to pull this up real quick. As far as trying to avoid conflict with with other victims. I know that there was a victim on a previous job that I had where I know for a fact that she was put up to, I guess, doing something to mistreat me by a race soldier who was actually a maximum racist aggressor. So just and even back then I was not codified in any way. I won't say in any way, but it was very little. But I always felt that it, just looking at my surroundings about how this world is dominated by racism, to just limit conflict with non-white people, and especially with black people. Just try my best to just be as courteous as possible to them, as friendly as possible to them, and as nice as possible to them. But what helped me as well was just knowing who was behind it. And sometimes you may not know that because you may not be having any problems with any white people at the time or anything like that at that particular moment, but you still, I guess now I would know that, they're always behind it, and they need us to focus on other people. And I learned that from this program, and that really, really helps me, knowing how badly they want me to focus on everybody else but them, because it won't solve the problem. And I was just listening to a recent program with you, Gus, and it was something it was from way in the past, and you were just talking about how your code is to just be more patient with victims than you are with like white people. You will change up your language or anything that you have to do, maybe not use white supremacy, maybe use racism, just to minimize conflict, and just be more patient with them, because you talk about how, we don't want to beat up on other victims because we've been terrorized. And Mr. Williams, he was brought up earlier as well, and how he was in such a bad situation at work where a victim, I think she was black, she actually even swung on him, and he still would not report her or any of that. And the race soldier tried to get him to report her, and he was like, well, she said what she said. And even when they were trying to get him to report her, he asked, what problem are we trying to solve? He did everything he could to try to avoid conflict with this person. And unfortunately, they ended up just lying on him and saying, well, he reported you even though he really didn't. But the point was, even though she did something as bad as tried to hit him and tried to harm him physically, he still just stuck to his codification and understanding that the problem is white people. So that's just what I would say. Just focus on who's behind it, and focus on how much victimization and terrorism that we experience so much, just to have some type of compassion on, just other victims. So just keeping that in mind. And I'll move the line. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Gus.
Patient with other black people. Patient with other victims of white supremacy. Any other final thoughts folks want to make sure they get in? Last moment or two before we conclude.
Have you heard?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Gus, it was one last report that I wanted to make with my observations. I had sent you an image, and I don't know if you can see it right now, but the context for that image, it says "No boss." That, like, those are some letters that are down in the area that I work in, and it's this. The significance of it is a black male was promoted to assistant supervisor, where she will apparently become the supervisor when the white man that's in his department retires. So there are these letters that are in a drawer. So the white guy who had just started there, he spelled out in letters, Boss Shannon, and the black male's name is Shannon. So someone, after a couple of months of it sitting there, they rearranged the letters, and it had Boss, and they took an N and an O from his name and put it on top of Boss, so it reads out No Boss. And they was like, man, I wonder who changed these letters around. And I just kept walking past it, and I said, let me take a picture of this. But I suspect a racist did this. So I know. I think you was speaking about like words and stuff like that, and just like things like anagrams and things of that nature. And I wanted to take a picture of that and wanted to get your view on that image.
Anagrams are huge. I think I played that segment a few weeks back from Sunday Puzzle, where it's just a word game that they have on NPR every Sunday in the middle of their news clip. Like this is not a funny haha program. This is a serious news program that lasts for like an hour or so each Sunday. But within that hour, they have a segment that's just word games, anagrams and things like that, where you mix the letters around for a word and come up with a new word. But the primary tool of racists, words, deception specifically, but words, use of words. And they do that sort of thing all the time. But at least in my view, that sort of contempt for a black person, I think you said this person just got promoted or is in a position where once the next white person steps down, they'll be the next in line for that, quote unquote, supervisory position. But that sort of contempt, disregard, and sabotaging of black people that are allegedly like managers or have some sort of authority, however minuscule or superficial it might be in a workplace, standard operating procedure in the system. I think that lovely, getting pictures and documenting, particularly in a workplace where they're already having reports of racism, white supremacy, perhaps, and you all are having these diversity seminars and such. I would, just document. I mean, now that's not one where it's flagrant. It's not like they spelled out nigger or anything, but black person gets this position, might be in line to be moving on up at the courthouse, and this sort of thing happening, and particularly taking something that was his name and then spelling out something else. Like, that's seems in line with what I would expect from racists. But we got everybody here graduated the diversity seminar, so we don't have any racists here at the Florida courthouse, right?
Exactly.
Anywho, I will check out the image. I guess once we get off the air, I'll check the image and give a thought once I can get a visual of it. The rest of the folks, we have done our 3. Much obliged for tuning in. I hope it was a constructive investment of your Thursday evening. We will do it again tomorrow. I think if we do the swap, because I didn't hear any opposition to swapping the days eventually, I think we can swap once we wrap up Black Love is a Revolutionary Act. So that would be sometime in October. We can swap and do Workplace Racism on Friday and the book club on Thursdays, which to me, it would not make that big a difference. If you're really opposed, that would mess up your schedule and have you feeling disgruntled about the cows. You can email and let me know if there's staunch opposition, but it seems like it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Anywho, we will be here tomorrow for aforementioned book club. Black Love is a Revolutionary Act, session 5. Looking forward to it. Pam the Great, studying her work. A ways to go in the text. We'll be here Saturday for the compensatory call-in, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Looking forward to that as well. Gus T might actually be starting prenatal teacher training next week, next Thursday, in fact. We'll have to see how that goes. I'm excited about the training. I'm not happy about having to invest all that time because it is a lot of work, but wowee. I think I would end up being a very competent yoga instructor with yoga teacher training or prenatal teacher training added to my repertoire. And I think a lot of Black moms would benefit. Like, wow, I was looking over the syllabus of what they cover in the class, how stress impacts pregnant mothers' bodies. It's like, wow, Black people need this information. Like, anywho, but yes, we'll let folks know if we're right back into teacher training again so quickly after it concluding. But that is another subject. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Hope it was worthy of your Thursday evening. Sobriety would be best under conditions of white terrorism. Race soldiers have benefited greatly from having us not making great decisions because we are inebriated on some of their poisons. Dr. Welsing, many of the other folks that we esteem, would strongly encourage sobriety to keep our brain computers working optimally so we can make great decisions in a very toxic, dangerous environment. In addition to being sober, let's be buckled up each and every time we are in a vehicle, driver, or passenger. Let's do all that we can to minimize contact with race soldiers, badge or no. That said, Creator, we ask that you help us remain patient with other Black people, victims of white supremacy. We ask that you help us remain patient with ourselves. Remind us to demonstrate the highest levels of Black self-respect at all times, in all places, each and every time we are in contact with another Black person. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. Cal signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed. I'm a victim, brother. Problem. You're a victim. I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning. Shut up. The man has programmed my conditioning. Even my conditioning has been conditioned.